Hi guys, let's continue with the international affairs and international justice. Last time I was talking about multiple leash theory. I have come up with 10, but obviously they are interrelated, they're somewhat overlapping. But my point is that, uh, because there are multiple leashes, by the way, the leash doesn't mean like, US is a, emperors or imperialism that sitting above everybody else. We do respect sovereignty state. I'm just using the leash, the word to say the ties, the connections of U.S. unique ties and connections U.S. has over the world with dealing with other countries. So this is not nothing negative. But I'm just saying that having multiple leashes help stabilize the connection. That's why, if you think about this, this U.S. is the only one superpower. If there's no, if everything is up to the U.S., their goodwill, then you have a inherent, embedded instability of the international relations. So because of the we have multiple ties, it's not everything totally depends on the U.S. goodwill. Then that increases the international stability and also the domestic stability because any president, even as powerful as they can change this. They can cut off all the 10 leashes overnight because that would be stupid unless you're treason, unless you are, foreign spies. Otherwise, I don't think it's realistic and feasible to cut off all the connections. So that's also the same reason we can also believe that while there are so many people, every time there's a change, people always say, okay, U.S. power is declining, especially when the U.S. is a retreat from Afghanistan. And then everybody say, okay, U.S. military dominance is over. No, it's never over. It's weakened. You know how many military bases in in the world? U.S. has at least 700. Some say it's 800 military bases. If you look at the distribution of the bases, you can see that clearly it's a kind of left over from World War II. Because if you think about this, Japan and has the biggest number of bases, okay, and then followed by Germany, and then followed by Italy. So it's clearly those kind of three countries, the World War II biggest threat to the world. They are having big military bases. Basically, the U.S. basically saying that, hey, watch out yourself. We are next door to you, and don't screw up, don't fuck up. So that's kind of interesting. The other interesting I was thinking, when I was reading, preparing for the 10 leashes, I was reading something interesting that I found that Pentagon sometimes, they will, even though the president can ask them to do something, for example, reducing the number of military personnel overseas, they may not follow that. So that's kind of a shock to me. I thought, as the commander in chief, he should have a final say. Obviously, not the case. The generals may or may not follow the orders from the president. So basically, I'm just saying that this having multiple leashes, it's a good thing. Okay, and also that also tells us that Trump, even though a lot of people were saying that Trump is weakening the U.S. and then basically retreat the U.S. and then become like a new isolationism. I don't think that will be the case. Number one, I don't think Trump. I would say Trump is a patriot, right? Even though there's all those words, he obviously sometimes he create the impression that he put himself above everything else. To a certain extent, he is. I mean, he's just such a self-centered guy. That's why I said that, the best arrangement is to have somebody else in the White House, but he will be kind of like his idea, his doctrines, maybe as the guide for the right wings, for the rightist, right? But it doesn't have to be the same guy with ideas and also with the executions, because sometimes he really created more dangers than the safety or than the peace sometimes. He has two sides, right? Meanwhile, he's creating some pieces and sometimes he's messing up. So this kind of thing we should keep bear in mind. I won't list all the 10 leashes, but you can tell that, the first one is a military, the second one is a financial, the third one is institutional, and the allied, and the morals. And then I want to emphasize two things. One is that, Trump is likely to weaken the allied leashes, by basically very critical of especially the European countries. But to a certain extent, the European countries, their governance is not it's not that most efficient. Sometimes they do screw up, and then so that's one thing. Uh, I'm just saying that when it comes to the leashes, the powers the U.S. has over other countries, that the allied leash may be one of them. The other one is probably moral justice leashes. Trump has basically, he's a big mouse that he says whatever he in his mind, and then whatever in his mind may be changed the next minute. So sometimes he created the impression, but also I really think that he did it on purpose. Not just him, but also the right-wing politicians. They are sick and tired of the leftist, make this country everything, moral issues, ideology issues. Basically saying, fuck you, forget about this. Let's talk about the reality. Let's talk about the raw power. And instead of, so they kind of are taking pride in being realistic and in being practical things. So that's one thing on purpose. However, I do want to point out that sometimes Trump administration may go too far. I give you examples. Last September, I read from online that the Pentagon basically sent military aircraft with the disguise of the civilian flight. That's one of the war crime. I think really U.S. should not lower itself down to that level. We should really not do that. And from the story that I read, that a few guys, two survivors, the total of on the ship of one boat is probably 11 people, and then two of them initially survived. They were in the water and then wave up to say, try to ask him for help to save them. But instead, the pilot actually shoot them to death. So that's I think it's called perfidy. That's one of the war crimes. You should not do that. Again, unlikely that the secretary Texas is unlikely to be held accountable, but they should. I mean, just like some individual ICE agent, they should be held responsible, because otherwise, it's really good. It's really bad for the country. So I'm just saying that we can. None of this created by me. The military ideology, financial, the culture, innovations and the public good. The only thing that I want to add to it is that, there's something called domestic debate leash. That's actually, I don't think many people will mention that, but I really think that's one of the things, because, because the domestic argument is always on, right? So people sometimes other countries may um, misread it. They may think that the current administration will not follow through because of domestic resistance. And it may or may not be true. The other thing, a bigger myth is that people may think that the domestic debate, self-criticism of the policies, Washington White House, bring people some hope. Other countries may think, okay, yeah, let's wait for how the domestic politics play out. So those are the things that I want to say. Let's end up here.